think the lady needs to occupy her time, and if she takes care of her husband's diet, she will have less time to speak about me. Whoa!
I remember going to their mega store when I must have been 15 and going to this mega store outside the ground and thinking, we're fucked here.
We're the biggest club in the world. And obviously that gets right up our noses. Could it happen with Newcastle and Spurs or both? Well, we'll see. And who knows, we might be on here talking about it. Hello and welcome back to another show from us, the Late Challenge podcast on here. This is Anfield. I'm Gareth Roberts, he's Paul Cope. And this week we are talking about rivals, Liverpool's rivals. Where do rivals come from? Do they change over time? Have we got old rivals and new rivals and the ones that stay the same? Jumping off point is, of course, that we played Everton at the weekend. We beat them, you know that. But even that, you know, after so many good results against them and so long in history now where they've not been able to get the better of us, and with us constantly being at, you know, different ends of the scale, does that affect the rivalry, or is that still a thing? What about Man United? Has there been any flux around that rivalry, or is that still the same? So we're going to have a natter about all of that and whether it's that simple, really. I mean, for me, it does start with Everton. It always starts with Everton for me because, you know, I've grown up with Evertonians in my street, Evertonians in my school, Evertonians in my workplace.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I go back to the school days, Bowden Comprehensive in Huyton, if you were wondering, you know, we used to argue about absolutely everything. I can remember them saying to us, we've got a scoreboard. And you know, it was literally anything and everything. You know what I mean? You argued about players, you argued about the boots they wore, you argued about anything and everything that your club did, and that was always the one that I wanted us to win. I always wanted us to be better than them at everything. And even now, you know, like I'm a grown man now, but I still sort of feel that way about it. And like, I think I can be all right about them, but other people might argue otherwise. But like, for instance, I used to say for years, they seem to do a lot of great work in the community. Why can't Liverpool?
Yeah.
Why did they seem better at it? And to be fair, I think Liverpool have got better at it. And maybe it was a problem of getting better about shouting about it as well.
Yeah, I've thought that.
But either way, that's always been really, really important to me. And there is a thing though, isn't there, where it would obviously be more important probably and higher up, and you'd feel it more if it was the pair of us going for titles and we're in cup finals like it was in the 80s. It's obviously going to be different when they're so far off what we are. But it's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that last point is the thing that really sits there for me, is that when we were growing up, that is what it was.
Yeah.
It was our city rivals were also our sporting rivals. And that obviously kicks it off more because you're literally winning or losing a title to the people you go to school with, and the people who live in your street and the people in your family who support them and all that. So you lose a title to them, you're never going to fucking hear the end of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas now, like I was even thinking about the weekend, like I'm not like they beat us. Even if they beat us and they come to gloat to me, I'd laugh. Do you know what I mean? Like, what? Sorry. You want to, even the one where they beat us at Anfield, you're like, sorry, you want to gloat because you beat us at Anfield behind closed doors for the first time in 25 years. And what? I'm not arsed. Like, it doesn't hit me. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't affect me deep down because I just dismiss them so easily because it's like, so what? I couldn't care less. So that does for me take away from that intensity because they're just not. It sounds really harsh, and you know, this is tempting Evertonians watching this on the internet to kick off, but they're just not as relevant as they used to be, are they? And I think there's a lot of sadness in that.
Yeah,
like I've referenced this in the past. My brother-in-law's an Evertonian, my nephew's an Evertonian. Like I am split inside myself even as to whether I want them relegated or not and things like that. But I think it's sad for them. I think it's sad that they've declined so much. I think it would be good for us and good for our city to have a strong Everton that we've got a strong rivalry with. 100%. I think that was great. It was good for our city when we were the best two footy clubs. I'm envious of Manchester when they've got the best two footy clubs, it's shit. I want us to have the best two footy clubs.
Yeah.
I want us to be the best one, but I want them to be second best.
Yeah.
Because then we can tell Manchester to fuck off.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I enjoyed that. And look, you know, even about like, you know, their grounds, you know, obviously their ground to be, if you like. I think it's sad in the way that they're leaving Goodison Park. I mean, I understand why they are, and it's obviously one of the oldest grounds in the country and all that kind of stuff. But I like that it's old school. Do you know what I mean? And it's good to go. You know, it's good to go there as a Red because we've got a decent record there. But you know, the new ground, and I'm interested to see where all that goes, obviously. But you know, that part of the city needs some regeneration. That part of the city needs a spark, and hopefully it can be Everton's ground there. I do constantly look at it though and think that would be freezing. Because Anfield's bad enough when the wind blows in off the Mersey, and that's like, you know, a couple of miles from it.
Yeah, it's not
when
in
you're
the
on
Mersey.
it. Yeah, and you're in it. That's going to be cold. So yeah, well, I'm still saying it's right up there, and I still do feel it, and I'm very, very, very glad that we managed to beat them, and we can park that now for a while, and we can crack on with what we're doing. Manchester United's another one then where, you know, they've obviously had a bit of a fall from grace and a chain of managers since Alex Ferguson thankfully finally packed it in. How do you feel about them now? Because, you know, they put a lot of misery on us, really, didn't they? By sort of, like, I remember with them, and I thought it was a really good point. I remember doing a piece about the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester when I was at university, so we're going back a long time. And I remember trying to get different perspectives on it that made the piece a little bit different from the usual. And one of the ways I did that, I spoke to like a professor of sociology who like had a bit of a specialism in football. And I always remember the point he made and thought, yeah, there's something in that, because it still chimes with me now. So, because he said, I think one of the reasons for that rivalry is so big is that Man United, for instance, like market themselves and call themselves, and the fans do it all the time, we're the biggest club in the world. And obviously that gets right up our noses. And so we go, you know, we won this, and this, and you know what I mean? And then they say about the titles, we say about the European Cups, you know, and on we go. And I think that is the thing. You know, we're both from the north, we're both from the northwest, we're both from Granada region, whatever you want. And as much as they speak funny and we speak like this, there's loads of similarities between the cities, between how you know, the politics, the histories, everything. It's like quite entwined. It's only 35 miles away at the end of the day. And I think that's where, you know, it's like you want to have the swagger. You know, you want to be able to swagger into Manchester and go, we're the best. And they want to do the same when they come here. So I think that's where that comes from. So yeah, okay, you know, they had their periods of dominance under Ferguson, but there was only one season, wasn't there, really, when you think back, where it was us going head to head. And that was 2009, was it, I think, Benitez.
And even then,
I know.
Like,
I
think if you said to Ferguson, did Liverpool go head to head with you then? They'd be like, not really.
Yeah.
We talked it up a lot, but when you look back, and you know, when we thought we were challenging them, we were still off them. We were still off the pace.
I still to this day can't. Well, like Machida, I don't know, something weird about all that. What happened to him? Do you know what I mean? But it's 100% there, isn't it? And look, all the usual cliches around that particular rivalry, that it's not just football, it's fashion, it's music, it's you know, it's everything, isn't it? Really?
Before then, isn't it? It's like it was trade.
Yeah,
like
trade.
It was literally like
they built a canal to rob our business.
Yeah. That's what it like goes back to. So it's like every element of a rivalry, we've got it.
Yeah.
And I've said this for a long time with Manchester and with Manchester United especially. Like we are like, we're like two brothers who are so similar to each other, but can't fucking stand it. Can't stand the fact that our brother is so similar to us and we need to be better than him. But we are very, very similar cities with very, very similar tendencies and makeups.
We've seen a little period though, haven't we, here where we, you know, stuff that you'd never imagine. You know, like if someone said to me, you're going to beat Man United 7-0.
Yeah.
You're going to go to Old Trafford and see Liverpool score 5.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to batter them to such an extent that they're going to walk out. You know, I mean, what days they were, you know what I mean?
But they are glory days, aren't they? And if they continued, what that rivalry would go for me would go the way of Everton. Like, it's still a rivalry, but it means more when you are like both up there competing, and the wider picture is who's won the most league titles, who's won the most European Cups. Now that's a fucking rivalry, isn't it? When you're talking about those things, but it's also that thing. We've mentioned him on here before. Like, my favourite Man United fan, Mark Goldbridge. Like, and I met him at Sky, and I've often, because I used to live with it. One of my best mates in law school was a United fan, and I've always had this affinity with the United fans when, you know, we can get past the rivalry. And you stand in a room together and other fans are there. When I met Goldbridge that day, Mark Goldbridge, we had that thing standing next to each other in the room of like, we're not asked about all of yous. And it was funny, him hearing me say it and him saying it. He was like, Joe, it was like all the other fans were competing to be our rivals. And we were both like, we're not asked about all of yous. And they're like, no, there was an Arsenal fan there going, no, Arsenal Man United have got a big rivalry. And he was like, nah, we're not asked about you. It's only Liverpool we're asked about. City fan was like, no, but what about us? And he was like, we're not asked about you. You're just knobheads. Like,
I mean, City's come into it, hasn't it? Obviously, and City, we'll come on to talk about them. But United's like the long-standing one, isn't it?
But I think United, and this is where we've talked about this in the past. And
it's been a bit moody in the past as well, which, again, you know, whether you're into that or you're not into that, it's a fact.
It adds to it.
Yeah.
Well, also, it's something we've mentioned on this when we've been laying into City. We never lay into Man United on the money side the way we lay into City, because United they started out like us. They became a huge, financially powerful football club through being a boss football club. No one ever came in and just went, here's a load of fucking oil money and we're going to cheat the system with it. So
they didn't get a free ground.
There's that element of it. There's all of that. Do you know what I mean? And so we find ourselves then, the way you said about Everton before, we used to look at them and be like, because I used to do the same thing. Why can't we be doing the good in the community like them? I think fair-minded Liverpool fans have always looked at United and gone, why aren't we run as well as they are? Why have they got club shops all over the world? Why have they got the biggest turnover? We're bigger than them. We should be selling more shirts than them. We should have bigger sponsorship deals than them. And that's where FSG coming in, for all the people who hate them, that was one of the biggest things they did, is start to drag us up onto Man United's level when it comes to the commercial side of the game. Because I remember years ago, it almost being like, we were too good for that. We were too good for all that. We're a traditional club and all that. And whilst we were busy doing that, Man United were busy making loads of fucking money that they could then spend.
Extending the ground.
100%. I remember going to their mega store when I must have been 15 and going to this mega store outside the ground and thinking, we're fucked here. Because at the time we had a fucking tiny like shed outside Anfield where you could buy like little souvenir fucking badges and stuff. And you're like, well, they're going to be making well more money than us. And they've got one of these in fucking Singapore. So but I think that rivalry has always been like, we want to be up where they are. We want to overtake them. Even things like, I know this sounds awful. There'll be fans who don't like this comment at all, but when you see the Deloitte Money League and stuff like that, I'm like, I want to be richer than yous. I want us to generate more money than you, because that's a sign that we're bigger than you as well. Because when they're doing that, we're the biggest club, it's things like that they mean. We've got more fans around the world and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I want that to be us. I want us to beat you in every possible way we can.
I think it helps that, they're in the middle of like an industrial estate, and they can just make the ground as big as they want whenever they feel like.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds behind that as well, isn't there?
I mean, the thing that always sticks with me with these as well is that, when you do get a statement win against them, like, I can remember, like 4-1's 2009. But like, you're doing like daft laughs, you know what I mean? Like 4-1.
I still remember my night out after the 4-1.
I do as
well. I
got
lashed off the karaoke in the Rose and Crown pub because they told us no footy songs. And I got up with Neil from the Anfield app and we did, do you remember the Sainer's song?
Yeah.
We just put that down as like we wanted to sing that song as the actual song. And obviously halfway through it started doing the Sainer's version of it. And they were like, get off! We told you! Fucking saying it.
But, like 4-1's way back in 2009, but 7-0's this year.
Yeah.
4-0 2022, 5-0 2021, 4-2 2021. And it's like, you know, we've given them some good tonkins in recent times. And it's been great.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think the reason this is my biggest rivalry for me, and I've loved those more than any others, those results, is my adult life was spent having to watch them win everything.
But they feel the same way as well. I think that's the thing, because, you know, like I worked there for 10 years, and I mentioned that a lot, but I did. And used to work with United fans, obviously, like, and same thing, like once you sort of like get to know them enough and you cross, like, you know, the daft stuff and you can have actual conversations. Like, I had that with a few of them. I remember like saying to one lad, well, you know, so tell us about 8 in Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? Like, tell us what it felt like from your end. And he's like, Ian Rush just used to, you know, score every week. You'd always win. You did this, you did that. You know, that
winning
did that.
Games late.
Yeah, all of that kind. And like all the stuff that we sort of say about them, they said about us. And you know what I mean? It's like, because we had our era, then they had their era. And like, you know, I used to hate that thing as well about it all comes round in cycles and all that. And obviously it felt like it never would. Yeah. Because they just kept winning. We went 30 years without the title. And you were like, where's this cycle? You know, I'm an half fella here. When's the cycle happening?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to City then. I think with City, obviously there's a rivalry, because if you're pipped by 1 point twice for titles, that's a rivalry. And, you know, I think we've both said, haven't we, on these shows and other shows, that, you know, it felt like certainly in those seasons that we were driving each other on to higher and higher standards. That's a rivalry. We've seen it go over the edge with fans at times. I don't get the impression that Klopp and Guardiola are like buddies type of thing. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's like a little bit of beef there. The games are big. The games feel special. There is a thing there. But then to be me, to be honest, to be what I think and feel about them, I still remember going to Main Road. And I still remember, you know, Paul Dickoff, and, you know, when they were down in the leagues and they had Jeb Brannan playing for them, and you know what I mean? They got beat by Stockport County and things like that. So there's the new City and there's the old City. And the old City, you know, I never really felt anything about them. And, you know, you'd go to their ground and it's a little bit moody, like. Yeah. But it didn't feel like United. And it didn't feel like there was anywhere near the same level of, you know, vitriol between the two sets of supporters and all. You still get all the scouse stuff and all that, but it definitely didn't sort of feel the same when I remember going there. Whereas you go now, and, you know, the Coppers say it's a high risk game, and they always want it moved in terms of the kick-off time and stuff like that. There have obviously been incidents between fans, and, you know, they're still cry-arsing about the bus and all that kind of stuff. I remember there being a piece actually, which was really interesting, about something else they cry-arsed about once, and it was like they moaned allegedly some buzzer didn't go off telling them like it was 5 minutes before the second half at Anfield or something, and they moaned about that as well. Do you know what I mean? So there has been this, like, you know, this beef that's built up because of the head-to-head thing. But how do you feel about them? Do you feel like, would you put them on a par with traditional rivals, or do you feel differently about them?
No, I actually think it's funny what you said about Klopp and Guardiola, because I think when it started out, it was very respectful. It was a very respectful rivalry. It was a very sporting rivalry. The other two managers would talk about each other and each other's teams with, you know, high esteem, basically. Like, this is, you know, Guardiola still says, I think, like, we're the greatest rivalry, the most difficult team he's played against as a rival. But I think that sort of friendliness, respect was getting pushed to the limits, because we had the bus incident and things like that, and
them singing on a plane and or a coach or whatever it was and all that.
And then I think what saved it, using the word saved in inverted commas, is we went shit. I think if we'd have stayed matching them for a couple more seasons, I think it could have turned into quite a feisty rivalry. But I think the fact that we dropped off and we're coming back again just sort of did enough to dampen all those flames. I don't know. I can just never see Man City in the same way that I see Man United. They do feel like, even you were saying before, like the vulgar, like, comparison came in my head. It's like, yeah, we know you've had a face job and a boob lift, but like we know what you look like before. Do you know what I mean? You're the core of Man City, and this is what they still struggle with. I think internally, is they're still the small club. They're still the poor neighbour. Do even to United, they still feel like that internally. There are still City fans who preferred the olden days because they preferred Division 2 and Paul Dickoff.
Surely not.
There are, and they struggle with it because they did, the influx of like the new fans and all of that. And I think it's mad with like I saw mad comparison to make, but I saw it with some Wrexham fans. Do you know what I mean? You go from having 3,000 fans turn up every week to having 10,000 fans turn up every week, and you're like, when you're one of the 3,000, you're like, yeah, but you're only fucking here because of fucking movie star bought us.
Yeah.
Where were you fucking 30 years ago when I was coming every week and you weren't? And I just think there's a lot of like internal shit at City like that's going on, and then you can't, with everybody else who's come in who loves the success and all of that, you can't create. And I think that's what their owners have struggled with. You can have all the money in the world, you can buy. Another mad example, isn't it? It's like what's the word? What's the movie? Indecent Proposal. You can have all the money in the world and you can think you can buy everything, but there's certain things in life you can't buy. Joe, you can't buy a woman fall in love with you. You can't buy the history that us and Man United have built up over generations.
Yeah.
Those stories, winning European Cups. They're trying to start that now. I get that. I remember saying years ago.
You know, we obviously done the whole show on it, on the late challenge, you know, talking about like the charges that they're facing, talking about their general attitude towards FFP and that, you know, they don't really seem overly concerned about it, just saying things like, oh, well, we'll just go and get the best lawyers and we'll just keep on going. Like all of that, there feels like like an arrogance around them, I think, how they operate. You know, like we don't play by those rules, so we're not interested in that. And I think it kind of feels to me like that permeates the club a little bit. And that makes me not like them. Do you know what I mean? And that makes me and so that's why, you know, I went to Etihad when we knocked them out of the Champions League. It was absolutely glorious. Yeah. You know, it's one of my favourite aways in God knows how many years. Do you know what I mean? Just because of that arrogance and you know that you were just going to rock up and we're going to win everything. No, you're not. In a bit, you're out. Yeah. And like, you know, and I was right on the divide that night as well. So I had, you know, a good debate with a City fan who, as soon as I walked through the turnstiles virtually, was asking me whether I actually had a ticket this time. Hilarious. So fair to say I gave it back to him all the way through. And it was absolutely glorious when we knocked him out. But that, you know, that image when Salah's like just in front of the away end there and it's just going off. You know, you can see how much it meant to everyone, and I think it feels like that when there's beef there. When you know when it's turned into a modern rivalry, if you like, it's beyond just knocking someone out the Champions League. It's there's more to that now.
Definitely, and at the same time, it's that thing, isn't it? That like we don't like a club that comes in, and we're going to go on to talk about Chelsea in a minute, but Joe, that buys its way to the top. We like the way we've done it. And it was, even when, Joe, you've got to compare them to Man United, I think. Just, Joe, Bobby Charlton, as we record this, Bobby Charlton passed away over the weekend, very sad. And it's, Joe, watching the tributes to him and people talking about it. And I saw Gary Neville talking about it. And he was talking about when Ferguson first took over and Charlton's influence behind the scenes to back Ferguson to stop him getting sacked. Because what United did back then, when you talk about breaking cycles, what Ferguson did to break our cycle is not dissimilar to what Klopp did to break theirs. Like, he took time to build something up. Do you know what I mean? And he did it even deeper. Like, he came in and built up. He wanted to build up their youth system. He wanted to build a football club. He didn't just come in and start buying stars for the first team. Don't get me wrong, they had money as well, and we've had money when we've done things in the past. But it wasn't just to come and throw money at it. He built stuff up from the base up.
Do you remember the banner?
Which one?
3 years of excuses and it's still crap to our Fergie. It's like a dead famous banner that like this Man United fan held up, and then like he sort of like ended up being like a story himself, you know what I mean?
Oh really?
Here's the fella who held up that banner. You wanted Ferguson gone because it didn't sort of quite go to plan at first. But yeah, you're right. I mean, even the way, you know, that was done, like there's a bit of class about that, isn't it? That they stayed behind Ferguson and that.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a lone wolf, the fella with his banner. But there was other dissenting voices, no two ways about it. But
you know what I mean? Like whereas City came in, and even before Guardiola's era, like the money they've thrown at it, the players they bought, almost the classlessness with which it was done. It was just all a bit like shady and seedy, and
even when they win things as well. I mean, I'm going to sound bitter here, but arse. It's a Liverpool show. But like even when they win things.
Oh, I thought you were saying not arsed. Like not asked about them winning things.
No, like it's weird. Like it's weird how football reacts to it. It's just like really low key.
Just like a shrug, isn't it?
Yeah. And like, you see like scenes from the Etihad and it's like someone like with a little, you know what I mean?
Loads of fireworks going off.
Party popper
yeah,
off.
But like they've paid for loads of fireworks and then the fans are just sort of
there's just like a few people standing on going, nice one, yeah. Here's a night. Chelsea then, I remembered this quote, so I dug it up because I think this sort of is a good point to make when you're talking about rivalries. So Chelsea, I think we would never have said, going back, if you go back to like the 80s or something, you're not going to be saying Chelsea are a rival.
No.
You'd never describe them as such. I used to always rail against the idea of them being one, but I think my views slightly changed on it now as time's gone on, because obviously we were, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no history that, as we sang to them, they're not local. We haven't got the thing we've got with Manchester. We certainly haven't got the thing we've got with Everton. But it was just, we played them so often. And we kept meeting them in competitions, and there was the beef between Rafa and Mourinho and all that kind of stuff. Like the quote that I'm on about is from Carragher. He says, I played Chelsea 47 times. So they're the opponents that I came up against most. And he said, I always wondered if a lot of the animosity came from us frustrating you. He's saying this to John Terry because they did a thing together, because you were always so much better than us. I don't think we were ever on a level playing field. We knew that and you knew that. But the fact we could get results against you at the time, certainly in Jose's era, was that a bit of a part of it? And Terry basically said, yeah. And like he talks about Mourinho giving a team talk, and he said he wouldn't even say the name Liverpool. He was like, calling them like, there's no way you can lose a game against these.
Well, and they can't think about that. It was after they'd won the league for the first time. They were 20 or 30 points ahead of us. Yeah. And he's saying there's no way you can lose this game. And even the Chelsea players must have been like, that's a bit mad, isn't it? Like, we've already won the league. We're miles ahead of them.
But it developed, didn't it, because of these games? And like, he obviously didn't let it go, Mourinho, like still doing content or interviews or whatever years later, still going on about the ghost goal and all this kind of stuff.
Well, he said that the sub-story behind all of that was he wanted our job, didn't he? He wanted to be our manager, and he didn't get it. And I think that was always a thing for him.
Do you remember him in the League Cup final as well? Shushing Liverpool fans. Absolute blurt. There was one I seen today, which was a bit of a new one on me. We're coming towards the end of the show here, really. There's probably a few more we could have done. But I'd never got onto this one. I don't know if you remember this one. So this was 2015. And it was basically Benitez following in Mourinho's managerial footsteps for the third time. This time taking over at Real Madrid. And Benitez's missus, for some reason, was quoted as saying that her husband has spent his whole career cleaning up after the special one. She said, Real Madrid are a third of Jose Mourinho's old teams. Rafa's coach. We tidy up his messes. If you think about it, of course, you end up crossing paths. There are only a few world-class clubs out there. Now, of course, him being him, he hears about it and he responds. He's in the middle of another spat right now in Italy. I heard about it before on the radio, and I was laughing, thinking, I'm sure we were saying on a show the other week he'd mellowed and we'd seen a nicer side of him, but that spikiness is still there. But he said in this particular instance, The lady is a bit confused, with all respect. I'm not laughing. She's confused because her husband went to Chelsea to replace Roberto Di Matteo, and he went to Real Madrid and replaced Carlo Ancelotti. The only club where her husband replaced me was at Inter Milan, where in 6 months he destroyed the best team in Europe at the time. And for her also to think about me and to speak about me, I think the lady needs to occupy her time. And if she takes care of her husband's diet, she will have less time to speak about me. Wow.
It's a dig, that, isn't it?
It's fucking like, whoa. So, you know, it was 100%. And I think as well with them and that rivalry that sparked up, you know, you could see it was between the players, the way Carragher talks about. It was definitely there between the sets of fans. Then you had, obviously, Torres goes to Stamford Bridge, which we weren't happy about. Do you remember they made that banner as well? And it had like part of the Shankly Gates on it.
On their banner?
Yeah. And we were like,
that.
what, you've just like cut and pasted our banner, you weirdos? And like, you know, they were very sort of like, you know, Tory in a lot of their songs and, you know, singing about money and singing about us being skint or whatever. You know, it was a real, like, you know, you couldn't be more different as clubs at that time when they were being bankrolled, you know, by, what's his name, Abramovich. And like we were doing it in a way that I think we would say, again, is more pure.
Well, they're another one using the thing of we knew what you were like before all this. And they were even a more extreme example of than the City one. I remember, and maybe people of our age and older will remember this. I remember Stamford Bridge being half empty for top flight league games. And at one end of the pitch, I remember there being a swastika flag on there.
Wow.
Yeah. They had a right wing, like a far right wing extreme element to their fan base. And it was like, that was there. Before the Abramovich money came in and before they were this cosmopolitan, multicultural club. And the only game I've ever been to where I was afraid, like literally afraid, like in fear of violence, was Chelsea away. When we played them, it was after Mourinho had gone, when we got knocked out in the Champions League. What's his face was the manager then. With Reese's diving at their own goal and all that. And I went to the second leg at Stamford Bridge and we got beat in a mad game. But I got separated from all the people I was with. It was like on a works, like, you know, clients had taken me, and ended up on this street surrounded by like literally like old school Chelsea skinheads, and literally put me hood up and kept me like Everton wrapped, and basically just thought it was in one of those places where you're like, please don't have to speak to anybody, because if I open my mouth, there's going to be problems in this crowd. That was the feel there. That's the only place I've ever been where it felt like that. So that's what they were. I remember that's what they were like before.
Just
all
have
of
an
this.
ambulance parked in the corner and a dog track going around the ground as well, didn't they? But yeah, I mean, we're running out of time now. We were going to talk about, we did have some other ones on there, more old school ones. We was playing Nottingham Forest this weekend. We were going to talk about why we still sing "We Hate Nottingham Forest," because there's no doubt a lot of young fans that I don't really care about Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
We also do, of course, sing a song where we say we hate Man City, Leeds, and Everton. We were going to mention Leeds a little bit as well and talk about sort of Shankly, v Don Revy, and that kind of stuff, but we've run out of time. I think the closing point I wanted to make is that there are certainly, you know, traditional rivalries that will always be there. That's your Everton and your Man United. But I think there's also definitely a space which you've seen in modern football more where something new can definitely develop. So that's happened with Chelsea. It's happened with Man City. Could it happen with Newcastle and Spurs, or both? Well, we'll see. And who knows, we might be on here talking about it. We'll be here next week, as usual, live at 5, a Wednesday show as well. And catch us too on The Late Challenge. That's been your Wednesday extra show. Up the Reds.